Okay, so yesterday we went around in circles for probably like an hour and a half trying to get this system to work correctly. The goal with this is to be able to stand here, have, let's say you have 3 door keys, be able to just walk up to the door, open your inventory, use the door key item, and open the door. And then if you're not near a door, we want it to say you're not near a door. We were able to eventually make the system that works, but there's a few things I want to fine tune and adjust just for some nice quality of life stuff or just to add a little bit of polish. And I wanted to recreate it from scratch just to make sure that it is working like we had it laid out and that there's not like a rogue switch or a rogue bit of eventing that was causing it to work that I didn't pay attention to. So we're going to kind of start over from scratch and we're going to recreate it the way that we ended up with it yesterday. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create our key item. We're going to call it chest key. We're going to choose the treasure chest icon. And then we want it to, well, we'll come back to it after we create the common event. So now our chest key has been created. What I want you to do is come back to your map editor. We're going to go to the region tab right here. And I want you to pick a number. Okay, I'm just going to choose 1. And you're going to put that tag on your door events. So we can't access this door because we're on the bottom floor. So we're going to put 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. And this is the identifier we're going to use to check if the player is near a door. We're also going to check if the player is facing the door. But this identifier can be used to check if the player is near it. Let's go to common events. We're going to leave these here for reference. These are the ones we made yesterday. But like I said, we're going to go ahead and start fresh. We're going to call this event check if near door. And what we're going to do is set the player's X to your main character that you're currently playing, their X. We're going to set variable player Y. Now, you may not have these variables in here already. Just create 2 variables, one called player X, one called player Y. So now we're going to set player Y to the player's Y. Okay. Now, here's where it starts to get a little complex. I'm going to describe real quick what I'm going to do before I start eventing it. But we're going to create a system that takes your coordinates. It's going to subtract an X, check if there's a region tile of 1 here. If not, it's going to add 2 to X because your X position's now here. It's going to add 2 to then go to this side of you, check if a door's here. If not, it's going to change your X back to its original starting position. Then it's going to subtract 1 from Y, which is going to check above you. If there's no region tag of 1 there, it's going to add 2. So 1, 2, and it's going to check here. So it's going to check all the surrounding tiles to see if there is a region tag of 1 like around you. Control variables. We're going to take the player's X and we're going to subtract 1. Actually, before we do this, this is very important. I completely forgot about this. Before we do this, we need to actually get the location of, or get the location data of the player's X and Y. So let's say your X and Y are 5 and 5. With this control variable, it's now 4, 5. What we need to do is check 4, 5 to see if it has a region ID. Okay, and store its region ID in a variable. That's what get location info is for. So it's going to get the location info for this position. Position player X and position player Y. And we want it to get the region ID. Okay, so now it has subtracted. Let's move this to the side. Now it has subtracted 1X from your position. So now this is your new X and Y position, and it's getting the location info for the player's X and player's Y, which is now this position since you subtracted 1 from X. It's going to get the region ID of this tile. If there's no region ID assigned to it, like there isn't here, it's just going to automatically assign it 0. And what we want to do is create a conditional branch. If the variable region ID is equal to 0, then we want it to turn a switch on that we created yesterday, but we'll create a new one called door unlocked. And we'll just delete this out of here just to be safe. Also, in location info, I just want to mention this real quick. In location info, you want to make sure that the region ID of the tile that you're checking is stored in a variable that you created. I called it region ID, makes it much easier to understand. You can call it whatever you want, but it will store the region ID of that tile in a variable. And then right here, we're checking this variable. If the region ID is equal to 1, then it's going to turn a switch called door unlocked on. Now, right here, what we need to do is we need to add 2 to the variable of player X. And then we're going to take this statement here, we're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it. And now when it's since it's added 2 to the player's X, it's now checking this tile to see if it has a region ID. Same thing, if region ID equals 1, then turn door unlocked on. Now we want to set the player's X back to your current position. So set it to character player X. Do the same thing that we did for the X variable for the Y variable. So we're going to control variables. We're going to add, or first we're going to subtract 1 from player Y to check above you. We're going to copy this block where it checks the region ID. We're going to paste it here. All right, and so it's checked. It is now checked above you. That's why you subtracted 1 Y from your player position. It gets the region ID. If the region ID is 1, start the door unlocked. If not, it's going to go to the next one. So we want to control variables, players Y, and then we want to add 2. And when you add 2, it's going to check below you. Copy this one more time, and we're going to paste it. And then at the end of all this, so it's basically checked all 4 surrounding tiles. If it does not find something with a region ID of 1, we want it to show a text, there is no door, or there is no door to use this on. And then under there is no door to use this on, we want to make sure that we give the key item back to the player because they've used one. Okay, just to recap this part, when you go to your item, which is the chest key, let's go ahead and add the common event here. Check if near door. When you use the chest key, it's going to run check if near door. So when check if dear nor, that's what we just said. Check if dear nor. So when check if near door runs, it's going to set your initial location. So it's going to take these 2 variables and assign them to your location. It's then going to take 1 away from the X variable to check to your left. See if it has a region ID of 1. If not, it's going to move on. If it does, it's going to trigger door unlocked, which I'll show you what that does in just a moment. So if not, it's going to move on to the next one. It's going to add 2 to X because the coordinates are currently this, since you subtracted 1 from player X. It's going to then add 2, check to your right. It's going to get the location info to see if there's a region ID there. I say check if the region ID is there. It's basically getting the region ID. If the region ID is equal to 1, it's going to trigger door unlock. If not, it's going to go back. It's going to set the X back to what your current X is, which is right here. Then it's going to do the same thing, but for the Y axis going up and down. So it's going to check above you, meaning it'll subtract 1 from Y, get the region info. If it's 1, it'll trigger door unlocked. If not, it's going to move on. It's going to add 2 to check below you. Same thing, get region info. If the region info is 1, it's going to trigger door unlocked. If not, it has gone through, at this point, it has gone through all 4 tiles around you. And it's going to tell you there's no door to use this on. And it's going to give you your chest key back. Let me look at this real quick. So another thing that I want to do is to make sure, I want there to be a check in place to make sure that you're facing the door. But I'm not sure in which section to put that in. So now that this is all said and done, we want to go into our door events. We're going to end up making another common event, but for now, let's go into our door events. So in here, we're going to start with this door. This is the default door page. We want it to show text, this door is locked. Press OK. Now go to your common events. This we're going to call, we'll call it check which door. And essentially what's going to happen here is very similar to checking if you're near the door. Since when you check if you're near the door, it's going to run door unlocked. Okay. Door unlocked is then going to trigger a parallel process on each door. When that parallel process runs, it's going to check to see which door the player is near by seeing in each event if the player is near each event. All three of these doors will run this process at the same time when you use the key and when the key finds out that you are near a one region ID. So if you're standing right here and you use the key, a parallel process is going to trigger on all three doors. This parallel process is going to run and it's going to evaluate if the player is near each door. When it's not, nothing's going to happen to this door. Same thing with this door. It's going to find out the player is not in the surrounding tiles. Nothing's going to happen. This door, however, when it finds that the player is near it, this door is going to open. So now we're going to make that event. So once again, we want to set the player's initial X and Y. As you can see, we've assigned our player's X and Y to our X and Y variables. We also need to do this for the event. So we want to control variables. We're going to choose event X. You'll need to create this variable. I already had it, but you'll need to create it. We'll choose event X, and what we're going to do is game data, character, and this event, map X. And so now the map X of this event will be set to the variable event X. We're going to do the same thing for Y. And we're essentially going to run the same sequence of events, subtracting 1 from X, then adding 2 to X, subtracting 1 from Y, and adding 2 to Y. Except in this scenario, instead of getting region info, we're just going to turn self-switch A on. I forgot, we actually made a more simple version of this, which I would have come to after I made all of these conditional branches. But basically, we're going to go ahead and check before we adjust any variables. If the player is already on the same axis as an event, if the player's Y is equal to the event's Y, then it's going to run the checks for X. So if the player's Y is the event Y, then we're going to add, or I guess subtract 1. We'll start with subtract 1 from player X. And then if player's X equals the event's X, it's going to turn self-switch A on. Now we're going to add 2 to the player's X, and then basically the same exact thing. If player's X equals event X, then turn self-switch A on. Okay, now if the player's Y does not equal event Y, first we are going to set the player's X back to the player's current X. Then we'll create a conditional branch. If the player's X equals the event X, we're going to copy this entire statement, but we're changing all of the X's to Y's. Nope, this needs to be player Y minus 1. I'm going to change this if player Y equals event Y. This needs to change to player Y. And this needs to change to if player Y equals event Y. If the door is nowhere around you, nothing's going to happen, which means when these two doors run this parallel process, nothing is going to happen to them. But when this one runs it, it's going to see that the player is near them, then it will open the door. All right, now we need to go into our door event. So we've got the one that says this door is locked. We're going to create a new page that's going to trigger on the door unlocked switch, which is going to be turned on when it checks to see if a region tile with the ID of 1 is near you. And it's just going to be the same picture as the original door. It's going to be a parallel process. And what this is going to do is run the common event, check which door. And then we're going to make one final page. This is going to be triggered when self-switch A is on. And it is going to be the opened version of the door. And press OK. We're just going to copy this and we're going to paste it where these other two doors were. Now we want to create an auto run event that gives our player a bunch of chess keys here. We'll just give him 50 chess keys. Also, I want to check the chess key item to make sure it is a regular item. It is consumable. The scope will be none, and the occasion will be the menu screen. All right, let's start our player here, and let's go ahead and give this a playtest. Oh, we did not turn the self switch on for the auto run event. I was gonna say something's running that's preventing us from doing anything. Let's try that again. Okay, let's check our inventory to make sure we have it. We do have 50 chess keys. Let's go ahead and try to use one. There's no door to use this on. None of the doors have opened. Let's make sure it refunded our key, which it did. So we have 50 chess keys. Let's go interact with one of the doors. The door is locked. I already realized one thing that we did that we'll have to fix, but let's go ahead and walk up to a door here. Let's use a chess key. Yeah, it says there's no door to use this on. So the door is now opened. So one thing that we didn't do is we did not turn door unlocked off at any point. And also so inside of check if near door, when it turns the door unlocked switch on, we need to just have it exit event processing for each time so that it does not give us this dialogue and give us another key back. So it turns self switch A on. Before that, we need to control switches and turn the door unlocked switch off, which will reset it. Okay, let's give it another playtest. Okay, let's go to our menu. We have 50 keys. Let's try to use a key. There's no door to use this on. Okay, good. It gave us the key. Let's go interact with the door. The door is locked. The door is locked. I'm going to get in view of multiple doors. Okay, here we go. The door is locked. Let's go ahead and use the chess key. And the door has been opened. And as you can see, this door is still closed. And it should not have refunded our chess key. Perfect. Okay, let's walk up to this door, see what happens. Door is locked. Okay, awesome. Let's go ahead and go into our menu, use the chess key, and now the door is open. And now both doors are open. And then we're going to go to the final door. Before we do, let's try to use this again. There's no door to use this on. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, let's use our last key here. And the door is open. Now, there's one issue with this current system that I want to show you that I touched on earlier, but I just want to show you all so that you can see why it's an issue and why we need to implement a fix for it. So let's go right here, and then we're going to go right here. As you can see, we're not facing the door. If we use the chess key, it'll still work though. Like that. So we need to put something in place to make sure that when it finds out you are near the tile ID, you also need to be facing that tile. And I think that's fairly easy to put in. I think we want to put it in here on check if near door. So like the first check that it's like looks to see if there's a region ID tag near you. I think that's the first place we want to do it. So right here, it's subtracting 1 from your location, which would be to your left. And if it is to your left, then you need to be facing to the left. So we're going to create a conditional branch. We're going to change it to if the player is facing left. And we're just going to put these event contents right in here. So when it checks to your right by adding 2, we just need to make sure if the player is facing right. And since we just copy and pasted, these event contents are already here. So we can delete these. All right, let's go down here. This is subtracting 1 from your Y. So we're going to go in here, we're going to paste, and this needs to be if the player is facing up because it's checking above you. Same thing, delete the event contents below here. It's adding 2 to your Y, which is checking below you. So you need to be facing down. And let's delete these. Let's playtest this real quick to make sure that it works. All right, so we're not facing the door. If we use the key, it should tell us there's no door to use this on. Absolutely lovely. Door's locked. Can we just, there we go. Face that direction. No door to use this on. Now we'll face the door. Door's locked. Use the chess key. Now the door's open. Not facing the right way. Use the chess key. There's no door to use this on. It refunded us our chess key. Now we're going to look at the door. We're going to use the item chess key. Now the door is unlocked. And there it is. That's the full system. That's the full system. I'm going to add some comments to the eventing to just make it easier for me to explain, to kind of give like a final general overview, and that'll kind of wrap things up. Okay, so I've added a bunch of comments here to hopefully help me explain in a cohesive way exactly what is happening and how it works. So firstly, you have your chess key. When you use your chess key, it's going to run the common event check if near door. In check if near door, it's going to set variables player X and player Y to the player's current X and Y, which is right here. What it's going to do is subtract 1 from that, which would be right here. And then it's going to get the region ID of that tile. Now, if the region ID is 1, which would be your door tiles or your door regions, then it's going to evaluate whether you're facing the direction that the door is in. So for instance, since we're checking to the left of the player, and if the region ID was 1, that would mean that the door is here. So the player needs to be facing left because the door would be right here. If not, it's going to check to the right. And to check to the right, it's going to add 2 to what player X now is. Player X is now right here because it just checked to see if there's a door right here. So it's going to add 1, which is your current position, then 2 to see if there's a door on the right. Same situation. It's going to get the region ID. If the region ID is 1, that would mean that a door is here. It needs to check to make sure that you are facing the direction of the door. If the door is right here, you need to be facing to the right. After it checks the X-axis for a region tile, a region ID with a region ID of 1, and it doesn't find one, then it's going to check the Y-axis, which is going to be above and below you. Now to do that, the X that it left off on was right here. So what we need to do is reset player X back to your current X, which is now back on this tile. Then it's going to subtract 1 from player Y, which is going to move it up here. It's going to get the region info for this tile. If it is equal to 1, that means there's a door here. It then has to check to make sure that the player is facing up towards that door, because if the door is above you, you need to be facing up. If there's no tile there, it's going to subtract 2 from player Y because player Y is now here. So subtract 1, 2. It is then going to do the same thing. If there's a region ID of 1, which would mean that the door is here, it needs to check to make sure that you are facing down towards that door. If it checks all 4 of these tiles surrounding you and there is no tile with a region ID of 1, which means there's no door around you, then it is going to tell you there's no door to use this on, and it will give you your chest key back. It will also tell you this even if you're next to one and it checks the door, if you're not facing that door, then it will skip the rest of it and it will show you there is no door to use this on. Okay, so you have to be facing the door to use the item. Let's say that at any point it checks for a door. Let's say you're up here. Let's go ahead and move you up here. Let's say you're right here. So it runs this check. It finds out that you are near a door. It's going to turn a switch called door unlocked on. Now, when door unlocked on gets turned on your second page for the door here, which is going to be very similar to your first, the first is just for when the player walks up to it and interacts with it, it's going to show that the door is locked. The second page is a parallel event that runs when door unlocked is on. Okay, because all 3 of these doors have those conditions. When you use your key, it finds out that a door is near you and turns door unlocked on. All 3 of these doors will run the same parallel process. And that process is going to be check which door. Inside of check which door, it's going to get your player position and the position of the event that's running it. Okay. In this case, it's going to be the position of this door, and this door. So when you get to this portion, if player Y equals event Y, it's going to check if the player and the event are on the same one of these lines, right? Okay, in this case, it's not. So what it's going to do is it's going to skip this completely. It's going to reset your X because it does some stuff with X in there, which you'll see shortly. It'll reset your X back to your current X, and then it's going to look to see if the player's X is equal to the event's X, which means that you are on the same line here. In this case, as you can see, the door's X is 15, the character's X is 15. So since the player's X is equal to the event's X, now what it's going to do is it's going to subtract 1 from the player's Y. So subtract 1, which would take you up. And then it's going to check, is that Y equal to the event Y? Which it is. If it is, it's going to turn door unlocked off. It's important that you do that because if you don't, the door unlock switch will stay on and it's going to cause all kinds of bugginess in your event flow. Okay. So you need to make sure that door unlock gets turned off and self switch A gets turned on. When self switch A gets turned on, this door will be open. And that is basically it. I think that'll pretty much do it for this creative mechanic. Hopefully this comes out understandable. This was like a very specific one to tackle. I wanted to tackle it because it was fairly complex, and even getting into it ended up being way more complex than I thought it would be. Ultimately, we got it working. I think it works very well. Talking about future creative mechanics, I think I have the plan in place for Fly. And for Fly, we're going to utilize show picture, but it won't be as difficult as you think. We're going to use a tool that's already included here, which is, where's it at? Save as image. When you right click a map, save as image. We're going to use that function. We're going to use show picture. We're going to create the Fly system. If we do it that way, it is quite simple. Surf, I haven't figured out how I want to do it yet. We could do it where it goes into the, you go into your ship for Surf, and that might be a way to do it. It would be a little bit different. If you have any mechanics that you would like to see made in the future, definitely let me know in the comments. If it's something that I can make happen, I will definitely look into it. I said definitely twice there, but otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in.